Step into the time machine. Let's travel through the past. Mr. Gold's gonna take you on a history blast. From ancient civilizations to the world wars. Get ready, hold tight.
Hey guys, in this video we're going to go over the Renaissance. The word Renaissance means a rebirth in general, but specific to this lesson we're going to talk about the rebirth in Europe, especially starting in Italy and then moving throughout the rest of Europe and later on throughout the civilized world. So the way the Renaissance really started, you have to look at the Crusades and the Black Plague. Before the Crusades, there wasn't a lot of interaction between Europe and the rest of the Middle East and Asia. So when you have less interaction between cultures, you have a less sharing of information and less sharing of technology, less sharing of recipes for cooking and farming and all that. So the Crusades are really a starting point for the Renaissance. Middle Eastern ideas and Middle Eastern people begin to move from east to west. You see, like, algebra, for example, is going to move from the Middle East to Europe. And the Crusades are really a big starting off point for this trade of ideas and cultures. Right after the Crusades, and also during one of the latter Crusades, you have the Black Death, which is also going to bring about the Renaissance. And you might wonder, well, how is a plague that kills off so many of the city's populations and the world's population going to help bring about a rebirth of ideas? Well, what it does is it makes the common person, the serf or the peasant, much more valuable. So before the plague, there was a feudal lord and a system where the serfs worked the land of the lord. And sometimes they would be paid, sometimes they would just work for free housing and enough food to survive. When the Black Death comes and kills off 30% of Europe's population, someone's labor is going to be worth a lot more. And so people are going to branch out from the lower class into the middle class and even develop a merchant class where people can become craftspeople, build their own items and sell them for money. So the Black Plague and the Crusades are really the starting point for this Renaissance rebirth, especially because of the interactions with the Middle East and the changing of society from top-down, lord on the top, serf at the bottom, to more of a truncated society with a bigger middle class. So bigger middle class is going to lead to more ideas and a more of spreading out of the power in Europe. So here are the cities of the Renaissance, each pictured here. So you see Florence, Venice, and Rome. And the reason that this is the starting off point for what we call the Renaissance is because Florence, Venice, Rome, they had the financial resources to really have a thriving merchant class during the 14 and 1500s. When we talk about the banking families of the Medicis and Rothschilds and those that actually had the power to fund artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and the rest, these are the places that had the money. So if you don't have money, you can't really afford all this marble sculptures to build David, or you can't afford to build these huge churches and cathedrals. So the banking families really fuel the rise of the Renaissance. The big ideas of the Renaissance: instead of having a society that is based on religious doctrine and obedience to religious principles, the Renaissance is a period of humanism. So humans begin to value their own agency as human beings, being able to choose different paths that they would like to go upon. And also it just shows that people at this time, they prefer more critical thinking and evidence-based, science-based reasoning. There's less of an acceptance of religious dogma and superstition. So the key figures in this one is going to be Petrarch, Erasmus, and Thomas More in the humanism movement. And it really changes our education system that we still have today. Instead of being like monks and living in monasteries and going to monastic school, the university system really grows at this time. And there's an emphasis on the individual potential. So instead of like the group thinking of church, it's more about individuals and creating informed, thoughtful, ethical citizens of the world. Instead of just a citizen of a small community or a small church, citizens are starting to view themselves in relation to the broader world. Artistic expression was a very defining area of the Renaissance. So new techniques such as perspective, chiaroscuro, and sfumato. I'm probably pronouncing chiaroscuro wrong, but it's a style of art where it uses shading and perspective to make the object look three-dimensional. And you'll see that in the picture in the top right. And then sfumato is like the shading of how the Mona Lisa looks. You'll have to ask an art history teacher for more detail because that's as far as I go. The artist of this time, Leonardo da Vinci, made the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, and then you have Michelangelo doing the Sistine Chapel and the Sculpture of David. Also, the School of Athens was done by Raphael at this time. And you can see the Sistine Chapel and the Mona Lisa at the bottom of the page here. The cool thing that I've learned about the Sistine Chapel, all those paintings were done in a period of 4 years. I mean, think about it. Like some people, in 4 years, they can barely like graduate art school, where in 4 years, he paints all the ceiling and walls of this immaculate chapel. The scientific advancements. So along with the art, there was also a growth in science. You have the printing press, the Gutenberg press to be specific, in 1440. You have linear perspective in art, the telescope, the microscope, and anatomical drawings that are actually anatomically accurate, and then an improvement on the mechanical clock and the innovation of algebra. The Islamic scholars invented algebra, but then the Europeans invented more advanced forms of it later. So those are the advances. And then the legacy of the Renaissance. So after Italy, the Renaissance spread to Northern Europe, Germany, all the rest of Northern Europe, France, Great Britain. And in summary, it's a profound shift from medieval to modern thinking. It sets the foundation for the modern world that we live in America today, where people value science and the humanities like social studies and philosophy, art, education, all these different fields of humanities and liberal arts education that we have today stem from the Renaissance. And check out the architecture in the very bottom left. This is Italian. This is the Vatican. I believe. Wait, is that? No, that's St. Peter's. I'll have to fact check that. But what does it remind you of in today's American society? Are there any buildings that you've seen that look like that? And I'm going to leave that as an open-ended question, and by answering that, you'll know how the Renaissance has affected today's architecture and today's society. So if you want to comment what you think the architecture reminds you of, feel free to, and we can discuss it. But yeah, the legacy of the Renaissance is still here today. It's not going away. We're still going to need math and engineering and three-dimensional art and anatomy and humanism. So hope this was informative to you guys, and it lets you know the value that the Renaissance has in our lives, as well as its significance back then. So
step into the time machine. Let's travel through the past. Mr. Gold's gonna take you on a history blast, from ancient